You know, it's not very often that I start pacing around the room before a True Eagle video, thinking about what I'm going to say and trying to put the feelings that I have into words prior to turning the camera on. Maybe I did it a little bit, last year when we lost to Sydney, or when we lost to Hawthorn in Tasmania. I don't know if it's just the way I've woken up today, the side I got out of the bed. But I'm feeling very passionate today. And I've been thinking about this game, and I don't know if it's just me, but this game feels big to me. This feels like a significant game for us. And I think the reason for that is nothing to do with ladder position or, trying to salvage the season necessarily. I feel like this is the game that I personally, and maybe others will share this, is the game where we turn up the dial a little bit on expectation. Been fairly pragmatic this season and pretty relaxed about where we are. And that's kind of the sort of beautiful thing. I don't know if the word is beautiful, but the pleasant thing about rebuilding or supporting a rebuilding side is this lack of expectation, really, to some extent, right? In the sense that we can let go of losses fairly easily compared to, I remember 2019 and that time we lost to Collingwood at Optus. That was arguably one of the worst feelings I've had in a long time supporting West Coast. So there is a sense of being able to be relaxed about certain results. And then naturally, when we do win, it feels amazing. When we beat the Demons, when we beat Richmond, and obviously the Derby, those were three big Eagles memories that I think will live long in the minds for us. And yeah, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you'd know that, I've been fairly relaxed about some of the losses. I feel like we've been able to rationalize those losses. Coming from a long way back, we've got a top-heavy list. We've got a lot of youth in the team. The arse fell out of this club for a little while there, and we're picking up the pieces. And, when the first 4 rounds didn't go our way, it was like, okay, this is what you'd expect from a shitty side. And then there was an improvement in form, followed by another dip. And even in the recent dip of form, specifically, post-Demons game, we lost to the Crows heavily, St Kilda and North Melbourne. I was somewhat a little bit detached from those results, purely because, I thought, fatigue might have been a big factor in the emotional dump of, a big win against the D's. I've seen these cycles play out in football. And, I even tipped North the week we lost to them. And I was just like, okay, that's fine. To some extent. And it was also a factor that I was away, for those however many games it was. I was still very invested in West Coast, and I was still, obsessively checking the score at the airport when I was, not able to watch the game. But, probably Monday to Friday, I wasn't thinking about West Coast. I was just, doing my thing. So, but that was definitely a factor. I don't know if it's because I'm back, following it more closely than I was while I was away, whether that has made me feel a bit more passionate this week. But, I'm kind of rambling at this stage, but I just feel like where we're at the moment, regardless of the opposition, our injury list is so good right now, and the team that we have on paper, you look at the starting lineup that we have. We can have Elliot Yeo, Tim Kelly, Harley Reid in the midfield, Ruben Jinby, Jaden Hunt on the wing. Like, that's not a bad team. You look at our backline. We got McGovern, we got Barras, we got a young gun in Brady Hoff, our captain Liam Duggan's in the prime of his career, Tom Cole. Our forward line has both Jake Waterman and Oscar Allen, and I know Oscar Allen's probably going to be a little bit rusty for a few weeks, but this is now the time where I'm thinking, okay, we've had 14 games for us to really settle into our brand. Players are relatively fit. We've just had a bye. They should be fresh. I mean, there's a few underdone players. Kelly might be underdone. He's back this week. Sure, it's never going to be perfect. Right now, I think we have now transcended that level of expectation where small steps are tolerable. I think it's now time to ramp up the level of expectation. And, I'm not even saying we need to beat Hawthorn. Hawthorn are a very good team at the moment. We'll go through some stats of what they're doing well at the moment. They are quality opposition, and they've beaten some teams far better than us. But we need to play well. No more of this, I look back to that round 3 performance against the Giants, right? I was relatively relaxed. I felt like we were doing things better than 2023. Our skill execution was poor. I think we're well and truly past the point where that's now tolerable, and I think we need to play well in this game. And if this team that we roll out against Hawthorn gets poleaxed, and I don't think we will, but if it did, for instance, this is probably the first time I would be like, okay. I would not have a single argument against those starting to question who's steering the ship at the moment. And I'm getting weirdly impassioned about whether Simo is the right coach. I mean, it's kind of a weird tangent. I felt like we played well against Essendon. I'm just saying, this is a bit of a line in the sand moment for me. From this point on, the expectation needs to lift, and I think we need to at least get close to winning in this game. Like I said, we're coming off the back of a performance against Essendon that I think is acceptable, and it was a big improvement from the first 3 weeks. And to summarise, if anyone didn't see that review, I just felt like we played our brand well. We tried hard. We did some things well. Our game style's a bit lopsided. We still get burned on turnover, and I don't expect that to change this week, but perhaps speak with more clarity. If this game plays out like it did against Essendon and, we have a good swing and we have, I'm not expecting us to not lapse at all, but if the lapses are minimal and we just get beaten by a better team that cut us up and know how to play us, I will accept that. But I won't be too forgiving if this game plays out as a 10 or 11 goal loss and our radar's off and we look fatigued. Like at that point, I'm thinking there's no more excuses, to be honest. So that's how I feel about this game. Having said all that, there is a bit of a negative undertone about the speech that I'm giving you right now. I do expect us to play well. I feel good about this game. I'm excited for it. Like I said, we're playing quality opposition. Now, the way I normally go through these reviews is formulaic. I'd start with the last time we met. In a good way, I think these are getting decreasingly relevant because we are so far removed from the team that lost to the Hawks in Tasmania last year. So if you forgot, we lost 142 to 26. Even just looking at the team sheets in that game, we just put out a bad team. Pretty sure Harry Edwards and Rhett Bazzo were the two key backs in that game. I think Oscar Allen played and kicked a goal. I think Dom Sheed actually played well that game. But there was Xavier O'Neill, Luke Foley, Callum Jamison was named in a forward pocket. I think both from a confidence mindset, mentality piece, and the actual skill level of players on the field in that game, I don't think it's super relevant. And I also think mentality was a huge part in us dropping off the way we did last year. And I think we don't need to worry about that too much in this game. I think we've been fairly rock solid except for one game against the Crows this year for whatever reason. So in terms of form lines against Hawthorn, we've lost the last two against them. I read a stat actually, if they beat us, it'll be the third time in a row, which will be the first time since 2015 that that's happened, which is quite interesting. But we beat them in 2015. They must have beat us twice in 14 and then beat us in the first game in 2015. I think that's what it was. Anyway, there isn't much of a form line of them against us at Optus. The last time that happened was in 2020, in the COVID-affected year, and then the time before that, they beat us in the final round of 2019. Again, another painful Eagles memory. 2019 did bring some heartbreak, didn't it? Other than that, they're 0-4 at Optus versus Fremantle since 2020. So, I don't think they're an amazing team at Optus, but again, as much as we are removed from the team that lost to Hawthorn last year, Hawthorn now in this burst of form is kind of removed from any of the other teams that they've been over the last 5 years. So I think it's worth looking at how they go at Optus, but there isn't really too much to read into. In theory, Optus and the MCG fairly similarly sized and proportioned. So other than the crowd advantage, I don't think there's got too much to worry about. So unfortunately, we're getting Hawthorn at a time where they've won 6 of the last 7. They are coming off a bye. Hopefully that plays into our hands, but nonetheless, one of the form sides of the competition, and I think in my power rankings, I've had them 5th the last couple of weeks, and I think that's about right. So they're 4th in the league for contested ball, which, I think is interesting because I think, in their glory days, they weren't actually a high contested ball or clearance side. They're 12th for clearance, but they're top 4 for contested ball. We are 15th. Nonetheless, when we play well, we generally do well in the contested ball stat. So as much as we are 15th, it doesn't reflect how up and down we've been. We've been great in this stat and we've been terrible in this stat. And naturally, we've had more bad games than good games. They are number 1 comfortably for ground ball gets, and we are 8th. I feel like we've been lingering in the top 4 most of the year for that stat. Nonetheless, that is Hawthorn's style. So good contested ball team, good ground ball team. We are relatively okay in these stats, at least when we're playing well. So this is a big test for us, big test to try and employ our brand against the team that does these things well. They're 7th in the league for inside 50 differential. When we're winning the midfield battle and playing well, inside 50s haven't been an issue for us. It's just when we're losing that midfield battle, that's when we get horribly deficient in it. Let's talk about team news. Okay, so part of the reason for this increased level of expectation is we add so much more of a dynamic edge to this midfield. So I think that's also worth noting that, that's kind of why in some of these recent performances against North Melbourne, against even Essendon, you look at the starting midfield we have, against the Saints and North, we had Sheed, Gaff in the midfield. And that was part of the reason, when we got bested by a young midfielder North, I was like, I kind of saw that coming. But Kelly Reid and Yo all playing in this game. No Dom Sheed, no Andrew Gaff, presumably. I don't think they'll recall Andrew Gaff, but Dom Sheed is definitely not playing with his hamstring injury. Like I said, the injury list is good. It hasn't ever been diabolical at any stage this year. It has threatened to. It's gotten right on the precipice, but thankfully, some of the injuries we've picked up have been short-term. And, generally speaking, wouldn't have affected the conditioning of the players we have in a team. Liam Ryan's probably fully fit now, evidenced by his time in the midfield on the weekend. Oscar Allen's probably a little bit rusty. Tim Kelly might be rusty. Jaden Hunt might be playing injured at the moment. It seems that way. But nonetheless, we're in pretty good shape, and hence the extra expectation on this game. So let's talk about changes. Kelly and Reid are going to walk up start. So who are the two players that come out for them? I think Jack Hutchinson's probably going to be a little bit unlucky. The most obvious player to come out. He was the sub. Hasn't done anything wrong as such, but I think he'll go back to the waffle in my opinion, and it's a little bit hard to justify dropping anyone else. Then you've got to make room for the second midfielder. I think it's probably going to be Jermaine Jones. I think it might seem weird to drop, a forward and a defender for two midfielders, but I consider the fact that we used Liam Duggan fairly heavily in the midfield last week. We also used Tyler Brockman. We also used Liam Ryan. So if those guys return to more of their traditional roles, that makes room for Kelly and Reid. You'd still like to see a bit of Brockman. You'd still like to see a bit of Liam Ryan because they were very effective in that role on the weekend. But it's nice that we now have some options, and I think that's the way I justify having out Hutchinson and Jermaine Jones. And I'd like to keep Ryan Marrick in the side, maybe Marrick as the sub. Again, he's like 196 centimetres, but undoubtedly playing wing at the moment. So Marrick as the sub, I don't mind that too much. There's another question around the talls. I would probably stay with what we've got. The only question is, do we bring in Jack Williams for Bailey Williams? I would be surprised if they make the ballsy call to drop Bailey. I think they're going to pursue this ruck combo a little bit longer. Like I said, there is a long-term view with that. So while it might not be optimal right now, and I don't think they've clicked as a mix, and I think Bailey needs time as a forward, I think they won't do it this week. Like I said, Bailey's going to have some pressure for that role. Jack Williams has done very well as that forward ruck previously. And like I said, if the grand finals tomorrow, probably be picking Jack to play better. Either way you look at it, it's an investment into the future anyway. So that's just something I'll dangle out there as a potential option, Jack for Bailey Williams, but I'm not really expecting that. All right, so prediction time. I've released just the tips on True Footy, and I tipped Hawthorn. I'm a little bit more confident in this now that Tim Kelly returns. He might not even play well because he's missed a bit of footy, but nonetheless, I've talked myself up. I'm going to change my tip. I still think it's probably the case that I'll be more surprised if we win than if we lose. And I could see us playing well and losing because of the quality of opposition. Hawthorn are a very good team at the moment. Like I said, the expectation on how we play is high. And if we get poleaxed, I will be filthy and genuinely very critical of where we're at. If we can't make a good fist of this game, there's no excuses anymore. Fatigue should be behind us. We're in good shape. The best 22 is not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad enough to be getting pumped. And anyway, I won't labour on that because I'm kind of getting myself worked out about an outcome that has not happened yet. I think we will play well. I'm going to tip West Coast by 20 points. If we lose by 20, make a good fist of it, fine. Move on to the next one. But like I said, expectation from here, it's got to be higher. So let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.